Well, Prime Minister Scott Morrison has maintained record approval ratings among voters despite renewed trade tensions, the re-election of the Palaszczuk government in Queensland and the US election. In two-party preferred terms, Scott Morrison holds the majority of voters, 51 to 49%, noting a 1-point boost there to Labor. Now, in primary vote terms, there's also a 1-point drop here for the coalition from 44 to 43, but that's still a full 10 points clear from Labor, who remain in the low 30s, with a slight 1-point lift to 34%. And the opposition leader, Anthony Albanese, is still struggling against the PM, with just 29% of voters regarding him as a better PM against Mr Morrison, who holds a very strong 58% of voter support. Joining me now for his analysis, the Australian's political editor, Dennis Shanahan, in Canberra. Dennis, I'll get your take on Newspoll in just a moment, but like you, I found Anthony Albanese's comments in relation to the US election yesterday nothing short of embarrassing. Indeed, you wrote it up today in the paper as the opposition typically overreaching as he tried to score a political point, including, as he often does, the use of one-line nasty sneers. Now, Australians will have a good look at Albanese, and I know they've been looking at him. He's been on the front bench for 15 years. Those numbers, not even 30% support there, up against the Prime Minister, who's close to 60. Do you think Labor hardheads are reassessing Albanese as leader?
Well, I think that certainly on his decision to suggest, in a formal statement, by the way, as the Leader of the Opposition, last week, that Scott Morrison contact the US President, Donald Trump, and tell him to respect the democratic processes. Now, this is puerile, immature, it's nuts. It is just silly. And as soon as I saw that, I thought he couldn't be serious. He repeated it. He kept saying he should do it. He had the courage to urge Donald Trump to respect the democracy. Now, no leader around the world was daring to suggest, well, could they even contact Donald Trump and say, oh, look, you have to step down now, Donald. It was just wrong. Now, the Leader of the Opposition tried to walk away from that this afternoon. He could see that people were once again saying he's gone too far, like the Morrison recession. No one believed that. It didn't pass the test. And so he started to walk away and said, oh, no, I'd never said or suggested that. Unfortunately, after question time, on this sky appeared Senator Tim Ayres, Labor New South Wales, who said Anthony Albanese was absolutely right to tell Scott Morrison to pick up the phone and call Donald Trump. Now, how can Anthony Albanese say he didn't say it? Of course he said it, he meant it, and it just backfired. Now, what he's done is actually undermined a legitimate case that Labor could mount on the fact that they could now start to argue about climate change and Joe Biden's election. It was a legitimate political tactic, but it was overcome by this silly call for Scott Morrison to tell Donald Trump to vacate the White House. And I think the Newspoll is showing that inability to act as an alternative Prime Minister is costing Anthony Albanese support. And by the way, it's not just me who thinks it, or you, Peter, it's also the Labor people.
I thought Labor's point, though, on climate change was pretty weak when you consider that the US has left the Paris Agreement, Australia has not. Under Scott Morrison, in fact, all of those targets are being met. So it's like comparing apples and oranges if you want to say now that somehow Biden's in a better position than Scott Morrison is, because Biden will also have the challenge of getting through any changes through a likely held Republican Senate. So I couldn't follow the point. The argument is about the net zero emissions by 2050. Well, that's 15 elections away. That's on the very long finger. I think people want to see what is being done in the forward estimates, what's being done in no more than a 10-year time frame that's real and demonstrable, and that fixes the environment in Australia, and less about sort of, promises to foreign bodies like the UN and others.
Oh, sure. Look, I'm not saying that Labor's argument really had much to go on, but at least it was better than suggesting that Scott Morrison should tell Donald Trump to bail out. The point here on the climate change stuff is that Australia is in a better position than the US under Donald Trump. We have remained in the Paris Agreement. We have stuck to targets for 2030. And as Scott Morrison says, and Labor doesn't like it, but we did meet Kyoto 1 and the Kyoto 2 targets. We've met them. And today, of course, Labor has still got its own problem because all it's got is often the never, a 2050 net zero emissions target.
And nothing
Scott
modelled.
Morrison, no, that's right. But today, Scott Morrison in Question Time said, oh, well, if you can't model it, if you can't tell people what the cost is, all you have to do is take a linear reduction, look at what 2050 will look like, and the target, the emissions target Labor will have to adopt is 43% reduction. That's bigger than they took to the last election. So they're being put into a corner by their own critics and their own divisions, and now they're letting Scott Morrison frame their own argument. I think Labor is trying to do what they can on climate change. They're grasping at Joe Biden, but they've still got a big problem.
I want to play a little bit of the speech yesterday from Joe Biden as he accepted the win. Let's have a listen.
For all those of you who voted for President Trump, I understand the disappointment tonight. I've lost a couple times myself, but now let's give each other a chance. It's time to put away the harsh rhetoric, lower the temperature, see each other again, listen to each other again. And to make progress, we have to stop treating our opponents as our enemies.
Now, we're yet to hear from Donald Trump in person. There's been a lot of people out there speaking for him. There's been some tweets, of course. More energy, I have to say, that we saw from Joe Biden yesterday than any other time in the campaign. Donald Trump is still vowing to pursue legal challenges. Where's this all headed, Dennis?
Well, obviously, people are trying to convince Donald Trump to accept the reality. It does look, even if he puts in these challenges, the big bar that he has to get over is he has to, A, prove that there is fraud, but also enough fraud to actually have changed the result in a particular state. So where there is a lead of 100,000 votes or whatever, he's got to prove that there's more than 100,000 fraudulent votes. And that's a very high bar to get over. And I think that the challenges probably won't get as far as he wants them to. Eventually, he's going to have to accept reality and then try and work through the remainder of his presidency. Let's remember, he's still president till January 20. He can still do quite a lot during that time, and he needs to sort of put his big boy pants on, as one of the American governors suggested. And as George Bush has shown, he should say, look, we accept the victory, we congratulate the victor, and this is the key, that what Joe Biden was offering was a return to boring normality. I was speaking to someone in Las Vegas yesterday who had been watching this very closely and the vote in Nevada, and his view was he'd gone and seen Joe Biden, and he said he was the most boring windbag he'd ever seen. But in the end, that's what people wanted. They want a king log back in the US to restore some quiet and calm. And if Biden can live up to his early rhetoric, well, he'll be a successful president.
And look, just before we go, a lot of scuttlebutt about a story on Four Corners likely to run tonight, the ABC. I know there's been some toing and froing between the government and executives at the ABC, although we've heard the PM say today that the ABC's got to live up to its charter. I understand the program's going ahead. What can you tell us?
I was told a couple of weeks ago that the ABC had been working on a tell-all story for a few months, and that this is going to cause problems for at least two government ministers. It's in relation to the bonking ban that Malcolm Turnbull introduced, in part to get back at Barnaby Joyce. We now see Malcolm Turnbull and Barnaby Joyce both featuring in the lead up to this program. And I think one important thing to see here as well, that today Scott Morrison, ahead of the program, and he doesn't know what's in it, but ahead of the program said he was one of the strongest supporters of the ban at the time. That is sex between a minister or a member and their staff, but not between ministers, so that's all right. But the point was, Scott Morrison has said, I back it, and it's in breach of the code if you break this rule. And so just get ready that there may be a passing bus where Scott Morrison is prepared to put another minister or two if the program is as damning and factual as it says it is. Now, it may be that who knows what's in it? I don't know. But I just get the feeling Scott Morrison is ready to act, and he's ready to enforce the bonking ban, which he says he went out of his way to ensure it remained on the books. So look out.
It's all pretty unedifying. Dennis Shanahan, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Peta.